We're here this morning with Mayor Alonzo Jones and former Mayor Sherman Saunders. We want to talk about a new display, an exhibition at the Danville Museum of Fine Arts and History. It's a permanent one. They will be revising it occasionally. Mayor Jones, you and I were down there on Friday.
Good morning, Hutch.
Good morning.
Good morning to those who are listening to us. It was just amazing after you and I toured there. Good morning, former Mayor Sherman Saunders.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. How are you, sir?
Doing great, sir. Good morning.
And you, of course, Mayor Saunders, are you familiar with what's in the exhibition?
Absolutely.
And the reason that I wanted you in here is because you're also familiar with what happened in 1963.
Yes, sir.
So first of all, let's chat. Let's set the stage here. It's a very positive exhibition called The Movement, and it focuses on Danville and our area. It includes the sit-in at Greensboro and the people arrested at the lunch counter. And there's a lunch counter in there.
Well, Hutch, you and I had the opportunity on Friday, as you stated. Webb Harrell, the education facilitator for the Danville Museum, took you and I for that tour. And like you said, it was absolutely amazing just to walk through it. You know, I was born in 1963, but just to walk through it step by step as you and I did on Friday, I was in awe. And I would encourage the members of the community, please go down there and look at that. And I just want a special thank you to Webb Harrell that took you and I through that.
Yeah, he did a great job putting it together with the other people there. There were a number of people. Kenneth Bond helped work on the reproduction of the lunch counter where the folks were arrested. And Mayor, I want to talk to you about your personal involvement in a second, but we were told an interesting story about an 11-year-old girl. Alonzo, why don't you share that with us?
I think that we were told that, and Saturday I had an opportunity, Sherman, to see her. Paula Smith, she actually sung on Saturday that her father, from my understanding, was a janitor in the beginning, and then he was later promoted to the president of First State Bank, and he went through the movement. And it was a very touching story, and that's why I encourage people to go by the museum to hear these stories, because even on Saturday, when the number of people from the community, both black and white, it was a huge gathering there on Saturday.
And about 50-50.
Yeah, exactly. It's 50-50. And the stories were just amazing. The songs were amazing. And the thing that impressed me the most is the Williams family, with Jerry Williams, Attorney Jerry Williams and his brother and his family. To see the tears from them in their presentation on Saturday, it still touches a lot of people's heart, and it touched my heart, even being born in 1963.
It does, and this was about an 11-year-old. Her daddy put her on the bus and said, now sit behind the driver, which you weren't supposed to do. And she sat behind the driver, and he said, we just want to see what's going to happen. And the driver turned around and said, you're going to have to go to the back. And she said, I'm fine here, thank you, very polite. And then they interceded on that, didn't they?
Well, you understand, that's the same thing that happened with Bishop Campbell. If you listen to Bishop Campbell's story, his oldest daughter, Alethea, the same identical thing happened. Bishop Campbell got on a bus, and his daughter Alethea was told that she couldn't sit there, and that started and he'll share that story, that started his involvement in the civil rights movement. The same exact thing that happened to Paula Smith's father, the same thing happened with Bishop Campbell, his daughter Alethea.
And what we want to do this morning is not make anybody feel bad. We just want to humanize this. If you're under the age of 50, you might not understand the humanity of what was going on there. We had two generations who were doing exactly what they were raised to do. But both of them were challenged to start looking at each other differently. One was demanding freedom. The other one learned that freedom is not something that one group has and can decide to give it to the other. Being free is part of being human. And they began to understand that, and more progress in civil rights was made by that same generation, probably than any in history. But we want you to see the pictures of what happened before that and what happened to bring that about, to get those thoughts changed.
Well, you're absolutely right. If you look at Saturday, for example, the number of 50-50, the number of people that were at the museum, that was not the place in 1960. That wouldn't happen in 63.
Yes.
You had a number of white and black people in the museum on Saturday, and that's what awed me. That really impressed me tremendously, because it was 50-50, and to see how far we've come.
And they were like brothers and sisters, and they're chatting about it, learning from each other. And Bishop Campbell was there, which I was just honored to have him there, as a matter of fact, because he has, he's just written a book, by the way, which has amazing, interesting stories from somebody who saw it firsthand. His pictures in there with Dr. King. Dr. King got off the airplane. I think he came 3 times in the summer of 63. And your parents, Mayor Saunders, go back to that. Tell us some of your connection to what was happening that year.
Well, thank you, Hutch. And I'll tell you to you and Mayor Jones, I know Paula K. We call her Paula K. Paula K. Martin. I knew her dad as well. And I recall that time when we were having that experience. I was 15 years old in 1963, and we lived in Ringgold, but we always believed in making a positive change for everyone in the community, the black community, the white community, everyone. And I was fortunate, like many people, my parents were very religious, and we were told to love and not hate, but bring about a change, a positive change for people. So we came in and we marched with Bishop Campbell, and Dr. King came and spoke at the High Street Baptist Church, and I was so impressed with what he said, that stayed with me. Later on, I had a real good job at Goodyear, making a lot of money, but I kept thinking about the work of Dr. King, being involved in the community, bringing people together of all ethnic origin, bringing them together. Yeah. So I applied for a job at Pennsylvania County Community Action, and I left Goodyear, took a 60% cut in pay to help bring people together. Well, if you think about it, Dr. King had a PhD at age 26, could have made all the money he wanted to, but dedicated his life to bringing people together. So my brother and I, we marched. My brother, one of those who sat in with the Williams brothers, Jerry and Butch, we call him Butch Williams, to integrate the library, where the museum is now. My mother also marched. My mother was arrested in the mayor's yard. And 45 years later, God made her son a mayor.
Yes.
So it's amazing how God worked in mysterious ways. And when my mother was arrested, a police officer said to her, he said, Mrs. Saunders. And that was the first clue, because no one was called Mr. or Mrs. back then if you were of color. Said, Mrs. Saunders says, why are you here? You look like a church woman. Why are you here? My mother said, I'm here for my children, and told the white police officer, and for your children, and for everybody's children. They need to know they can grow up in this America and be a part of the real America to do what they want to do with love, no hate. Racism is wrong, discrimination is wrong. And she said, yes, I am a church woman. My church is in my heart, and I'm taking my church to jail. Now, what cell do I go in? Wow. That was my mother.
Wow. Give you chills, doesn't it? And I'm gonna touch off on something that, because I'm glad you brought up the Christianity aspect and the love aspect, and how she said, I'm doing it for my kids and yours. And we're in here with Mayor Sherman Saunders, Mayor Alonzo Jones. There's a new permanent display if you're a Sunday school teacher or a teacher. I've already heard some teachers saying, I got to bring my kids over here.
There were teachers there Saturday. It's
very positive. It will make it, the races are standing there discussing it with each other like brother and sister, because we're far from that now, but we need to remember, particularly people under 40 who've never heard the real story, what it was like. And you're talking about your mom and love and doing this for everybody. I was talking to a friend years ago, and he was telling me what was happening at Bible Way Church, where whenever Dr. King went somewhere, they would get the biggest churches to bring in volunteers, but they would train them. They had to be trained to be nonviolent, and they would get the people together, and they would go and they would say, okay, now somebody came at you with a big stick or came at you with a fire hose, what would you do? And the ones who would go, I'd get them. They go, okay, bless you. We've got something else for you to do over here.
Yeah.
And when they,
get out of here.
Because Dr. King said, and this is what's almost healing to hear, he said, we can't change these people's heads and their thoughts. They were raised this way. The only way we're going to reach them is with our hearts. And when they come at you and they see you have total acceptance in your eyes and that you're not judging them, when they see that humility and that innocence and that purity, that will get to their heart. And when you change their heart, the battle is over with.
Yeah.
And he knew that. And so that was the look on the faces. You can see these looks. It's either fear or peace in their hearts. And it would be healing for everybody to go look at that and see how far we've come, but give them some credit. They had to change the way they thought about themselves. Everybody did.
We have come a long ways. It's all about love and not hate.
Yes.
And we're to make this country, this world better. The people coming behind us are watching us. And we must show them that love is the answer. Love is the answer. I have no need to be upset with anyone who may be a part of or read about or know about or a blood relative. I'm somebody in the 1500s. That's how things were in the 1500s, in the 1600s. But this is 2000 now. Things are different. We need to come together, and we have come together. And in Danville, I am so proud of this city. Yes. I'm so proud of the people here because love is the answer. A lot of people are moving here in my Rotary Club. Over half the members were not born here, but they're bringing positive things here as well. So Danville is not the Danville of the 60s. It's the Danville of today. I love it. I marched with Bishop King. When Dr. King spoke at High Street Baptist Church, I was there. A lot of people were there, and I'm just proud of our city. There are great people who live here. We don't always agree, and that's okay. Mayor Jones and I are both veterans. And the old saying, I may not agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it.
It's just like on Saturday, Hutch, as the former Mayor Sherman Saunders mentioned, I saw that love in the room when the United, Sherman hit it right on the head, to see how Danville is moving forward, to see in this museum how both bodies of people and several bodies of people are working together to bring about a change. Hutch, you and I talked about this, the nonviolent movement, and I want you to touch on this the other day because it really sent chills how Dr. King and others talked about being nonviolent. We talked about that.
Yes, because he said you can't change their minds, but if you touch their hearts, your innocence will touch something in them that they don't even understand. The fact that you're looking at them with loving eyes when they're coming at you will touch something in them, and what he said, the difference will happen because they're going to realize what they're doing is wrong. You don't have to say a word. It'll be in your eyes. And when they realize what they're doing is wrong, their minds will be changed because their heart has been changed. He had that genius.
But the most powerful part about that is you don't have to say a word. All you just, as Sherman stated, all you have to just continue to love. And sometimes it's difficult for people, but you just have to continue to move forward, continue to love.
And look at work.
And look at it.
Yes. But we have to understand once again, this has been a long journey for powerful people to realize that freedom's for everybody. You know, you had the end of slavery in 1865. It wasn't until 1920 that women were given the right to vote. It was a common belief back then that, in a lot of cases, the smartest gender not voting. Then we had civil rights. And there are still areas today where we're working on accepting people who are different than we are in a lot of ways. It's a human thing that we're learning to rise above. And I like what you mentioned because it's true. The races that were there, they were looking at it and discussing it in unity. There was a sense of they were looking at it with a look of compassion and sympathy and pride in what was accomplished.
And there's a group of people, and there are many, as Sherman stated, that want to continue to move Danville forward. We say that oftentimes, and Danville is moving forward because of that. Because of everybody working together, because of us being able to put our differences aside. We can remember the history, and we can continue to move forward.
Absolutely. And Hutch, I want to thank you for this opportunity to let people know how Danville was and how Danville is. The media is very important. Dr. King used the media. When people sat at home across the country, across the world, and saw what was happening, they were saying, this is not right. They started making phone calls from where they live. They started talking to their elected officials, and change started happening. You're allowing Mayor Jones and myself to be here this morning to talk about how things were, how things are, and how things are much better, and how this is a great city. And yes, we review the past to improve the future. And that's what's happening. And your station, gave us this opportunity, and we say thank you.
And I agree with you, Sherman. And the most important, and I did what Sherman is saying, is you trust us enough as mayor and former mayor to invite us here to know that we're about uniting the city, bringing people together, and we're about love for this city and growing this city.
Yes, sir.
Well, I appreciate you two coming in because when I heard about this, first thing I did was picked up the phone and I called you, Mayor Jones.
We got that speed dial thing going on.
Exactly. Friday morning. Hey, can we go to the museum and look at this together tomorrow? Good thing, brother. And when we walked in, Sherman, and he saw the display, he said, "Can we get Sherman on this?" I said, "I hope we can." So I left a message. But I mean, it's a message that when you have us, like you said, us talking here, people are hearing, this is a positive thing.
That's right.
You will go look at this with compassion. You will look at this glad that we've made the progress and realizing that the next time you disagree with somebody, if you can bring yourself to be loving to them and to accept them, this is what they were doing years ago. And you will realize that's a hard thing to do.
Exactly.
Somebody's coming at you with a stick. There's even a reproduction of one of the fire hoses that was down there. I mean, this thing's pretty real, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and one more, Chuck, you know.
That's all right.
Hutch.
He's called me that for 23 years. It's okay. I know,
But it's love. But he started off with love, so you know it's
Right.
love.
Thank you. Yeah, with love.
He did.
Thank you, Hutch. Appreciate that. Yeah. Also during this time, my brother was arrested 2 different times in 1963, and he actually served time. He wasn't just booked and released. He actually served time. Later on, and into adult life, my brother became a warden for the State Department of Correction. He worked there for 29 years. In 29 years, he only had 1 escape, and they caught him the next day. And the inmate told the police officer, I'm going to go back and apologize to Warden Saunders because I made him look bad. So because he was there 2 different times, full time, he knew how it felt to be behind bars and how it felt to be locked up with no freedom. And when my brother passed away, over 200 ex-offenders were at his funeral. And they thanked him for the way he treated them when they were in prison.
He learned the hard way.
He learned the hard way. Again, following Dr. King, following Bishop Campbell, and others. So many positive things happened because of Dr. King, because of Bishop Campbell, and others.
And if you want to follow up on this, and we've got to get into news here, Bishop Campbell has written a wonderful book.
Yes.
And you can get a hold of it. The best thing to do is call Bible Way, 793-9493.
That's correct. That's correct.
And you can get a copy of it. It's a wonderful history of this. There are some stories that will really touch your heart because he was there. I mean, there's pictures of him in there with Dr. King getting off the airplane. He had the backstage seat to all of that stuff. And so stories in there that I think you'll be blessed with. But gentlemen, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for inviting us. I also want to thank Senator Bill Stanley. He was there on Saturday. So thank you so much.
Excellent.
Thank you, Hutch. Thank you, Mr.